Hello everyone, welcome back to Homestuck. I wasn't actually really having audio issues, but I kind of can't hear myself. It's weird. Something's happened to my monitor on OBS. So, if my voice is a little off in this episode, that's why. Anyway, last time we met Vriska's pirate crew, and now Aranea is expositing some story to us, so I mean, this looks like something. Green cheeks, that's Calliope, right? Or I guess a Calliope. Like a cherub that got the green cheek one to take over in the end. I don't know. Anyway, if you're enjoying Homestuck, like, subscribe, and become a member to see it a week early if you want. Let's get going.
She spent eons roaming her galaxy, completely alone, but the time had come for her to find a mate.
Okay.
That is no small task for a cherub. Being an asocial species, they spend virtually no time in each other's presence at all. Aside from when it is time to mate, they may go their entire lives throughout space, each staking a territory spanning many light years. But like a predator is able to track a scent of its prey, a cherub can sense the presence of another nearby. This sense is especially strong if that cherub shares the same qualities its other half once had long ago, before it experienced the maturation process known as predomination.
Alright. Whoa. Oh my god, okay. Paragraphs, here we go.
You see, when a young cherub hatches, it would appear that only one creature has begun its life, but the appearance is not to be trusted. The young cherub actually consists of two completely distinct beings, a male and female, each sharing one body. The two halves are endowed with polar opposite predispositions as well. One predisposed towards malevolence, another towards benevolence, good or evil if you prefer to deal in simplistic terms, or at least those which are convenient for the sake of this story. I prefer to view the dichotomy as a kind of moral alignment, like an attribute that dictates the choices a character makes in certain types of games I used to play. The male and female halves can be aligned either way, as long as they differ from each other. The resulting conflict between the two personalities is central to life as a cherub, both before and after predomination.
Okay, already kind of knew that.
Shortly after hatching, the two halves begin vacillating, taking turns controlling the body. The only physical differentiation between the two is the coloration of their cheek swirls, which indicates alignment. There is otherwise no way to tell male and female apart before a cherub predominates. The vacillation process is demarcated by sleep. When the male goes to sleep, the female wakes up, and when the male wakes up, again the female sleeps. And so it goes, back and forth like this, as the two identities vie for dominance over the other, and ultimately,
Okay.
permanent control over the body. They grow to detest one another, and develop the view of social interaction centered entirely around animosity and confrontation. For good cherubs, this readies them for a long life of isolation, as they will prefer to avoid the sort of conflict that comes with social interaction as they have been conditioned to understand it. But for evil ones, the contentious upbringing only serves to fuel their inclination to harm others. And though this duality makes for a tormented childhood, the inner conflict it creates is an extremely important part of a young cherub's life. The defining part, actually. It is the struggle a cherub must overcome to mature, and this process culminates in predomination.
Green.
One half will prove to have the stronger will than the other. The less dominant half will then weaken over time, and it will eventually become clear to both that one will not survive. The dominant personality will then completely consume the other, integrating it in such a way that only one is left. The cheeks will become solidly colored, and the cherub will grow to maturity as a single being, endowed with the alignment of the dominant half, and with all his or her personal qualities at the forefront of the union. In the case of our heroine, she was the good half, and the day of her predomination was in a sense the day her brother died. And though it was to her benefit and personal growth, because of this loss she would always live with a sense of something was missing. Every sexually mature cherub lives with this feeling. It drives them to seek out another cherub similar to the half they lost, the part of their being which they grew up in perpetual conflict with. The desire to travel the universe in hopes of reigniting that conflict is very important to their species. It is the force which compels them to procreate.
Whoa. That looks pretty cool. I just understood it. I thought it was just like a green comet with wings. I was kind of going like, whoa. But no, there's legs in there. Anyway, this is an interesting way to design a fantasy species based entirely on hate love, you know? Because that's the idea, right? It's interesting. Also, I find it interesting that humans are then on the exact opposite side of that spectrum. So maybe something to that. We'll see. I haven't actually done any like theorizing on what's going to happen in a while, and I keep meaning to, and then I forget. So, while I'm thinking about it, I should probably do that right now. My theory is based on specifically this with the white wings, and then the sort of good and evil dynamic between the cherubs. I have a feeling that has something to do with Skaya, for one, with the white and black chess pieces. But also, because of that, Jack Noir and male lady dog friend. Like, I feel like, I don't know how it would happen. Like, somebody would have to, prototype each kind of cherub, and then maybe they would be able to take on the forms of these like primordial cherubs of space and time. But like, two forces in a constant battle, that's the chess thing in Skya, right? Until humans intervene. It sounds a lot like, this, like, the creation of a new universe is basically like predomination, as we're learning about it now, right? Where one side wins, and then a new being is born that's based on the personalities of the side that won, essentially. It definitely ties in. It feels like cherubs are kind of like a far cosmic species. So we'll see if that comes true. I guess I didn't even realize this, but Durst got destroyed, right? At least partially. I don't know if it's fully destroyed yet. But if Durst got destroyed, that means Dad is dead again. Dad is dead again! So that kind of sucks. Jane never even got to reunite with him. But that's kind of how it went for John, so I guess it kind of makes sense. It is weird, I guess. Okay, I think it was explained, wasn't it? Why Jake is Jake English? Because English was supposedly the Batter Witch's enemy that she was plotting against. So Jade gave Jake that name in this universe. But I still feel like there's going to be some sort of connective tissue there in terms of the story, because there's no way that there's just a character called Jake English. And he actually has like nothing to do with Lord English at all, ever. Even if it was initially a fake out. Like, he is also a page, or was it Paige? I think it's Paige, who has like infinite potential, but like starts with nothing. So that there is a possibility that Jake is actually the most important character in Homestuck, unfortunately. But we'll see. I've had a lot of people assure me that the actual ending of Homestuck, now that we're past Openbound and the kids have made it to this universe, is all pretty good. So I've got high hopes. Is there anything else I wanted to mention as a potential for a theory? No, I think I'm good. Okay. Back to it.
So she set out to track his scent, as it were, and soon she found a physical trail as well, a path of carnage left behind by a particularly destructive male cherub. She followed the debris from civilized worlds and star systems he left behind, as if to mock her, to make it clear he knew of her pursuit.
Okay, she's literally pursuing him while he's destroying things. It definitely feels, intentional.
And was all but paving her way with the dead. His brutality made her more furious, thus setting the mood, so to speak, for their imminent courtship.
Whoa, what? Who? Why do you have a top hat?
A cherub of his alignment is seemingly motivated by little other than to conquer and destroy. From a bioexistential perspective, they behave somewhat like viruses attacking the system from within, but as with all symbiotic organisms living within a universe, there are balancing factors, and while those inhabiting an evil cherub's territory were regarded as an unpredictable tyrant, those in the territory of a good cherub will likely come to view it as a protector, waiting quietly for millennia in deep space, ready to attack any encroaching threat. In that sense, they are not unlike cells in a universal immune system.
Oh, well.
The balance of forces allows stability, such that life and new civilizations can blossom and thrive within a universe, thus assuring the possibility of its own elaborate procreation process. But if that balance was ever disturbed, it would lead to chaos in that biosystem. The universe could not survive for long, and if by some means a cherub with such destructive tendencies were to achieve unprecedented power, the resulting imbalance would be catastrophic for Paradox Space itself, and though the heroine of our story could have no way of knowing, this is exactly what would result from the pursuit of her Kismesis.
So those are just random trolls on another planet? Are trolls also a universal constant? Are humans a universal constant? Now I'm confused.
Like humans, cherubs perceive romance through only one quadrant. Unlike humans, their relationships are exclusively black, but their mating ritual is much more violent than any practice trolls would, or even physically could, engage in. And though it is critical to the perpetuation of their race, the confrontations can sometimes be lethal to one or both cherubs. Regardless of the outcome, the stakes are always high. The winner of the duel will assume control of the other's territory, while the loser will slink away to bear the offspring. So as she toured the planetary wreckage, she knew her quest for a mate was not just about the propagation of her species, but the liberation of billions from a monster.
Okay.
She pursued him for many sweeps with mounting obsession, until one day the trail came to an end at a black hole. Cherubs typically seek out black holes as the setting for their mating ritual, but not any black hole. Once long ago it was a star, and circling that star was a planet. That planet was home to one of the presently sparring cherubs. The male, in this case, returned to the site of his hatching to mate, a location now conspicuously occupied by a truly massive black hole. This is where she found him, and where they would duel.
Okay.
While an adult cherub is a fearsome creature, it would be a formidable opponent to anyone in its unaltered state. This is not the form in which they do battle with each other. The ritual is more extreme and physically demanding than any other kind of courtship or duel in the universe. The moment they meet, they will both undergo a dramatic metamorphosis.
Into snakes? It's literally the Ouroboros. Okay, it's a snake eating its own tail. Makes sense.
The mates will then duel as two vast frightening serpents, each an astronomical unit in length.
Absolute unit.
The tangled struggle between the green owls... Owls?
I don't know.
Is exceedingly brutal and can last for sweeps. While dueling in such a monstrous form, their energy is inexhaustible. The transformation taps into the cherub's latent connection with the enigmatic forces presiding over all that is eternal, and permeating all those endowed with immortality. Normally this power is only accessible to them during mating. In this form they are able to be injured by one another and are otherwise indestructible.
Oh, only able to be injured by each other, okay.
Hence, the ritual can never be stopped by an outside force until it is complete.
There we go.
It should come as no surprise that in this story, our heroine was victorious. Upon defeating her mate, she initiated the interlocking formation to complete the coupling, while assuming the dominant position, a stance undetectable to all but the most astute observers of the zoologically dubious. Consequently, the male was fertilized with the young.
Oh my god, the baby was you. Foreshadowing all along.
He then slithered away in disgrace from the territory he just lost. A cherub looking to nest will search for a dead planet situated near a massive dying star. The egg is deposited on the planet's surface, and the rising temperature from the expanding red giant will incubate the egg until it is ready to hatch. Later in life, the cherub will grow wings, assuming it has matured properly, and if it has learned to fly well enough to reach a safe distance from the nest before the star goes supernova, soon the hungry cherub will return and feast on the resulting stellar energy. Doing so allows it to gain enough strength to travel great distances and claim its own territory. The star will then collapse into a black hole, serving as a distinct gravitational beacon to the cherub later in life so it may return there to mate. As it happens, our heroine's mate discovered Earth long after it had journeyed to a new sun, and long since new civilizations had risen and fallen. Now on the brink of destruction from its dying star, its barren accommodations were ideal for a young cherub. There he deposited his single egg and flew away, never to return. No cherub ever spawns more than one offspring at a time, for it is every cherub's destiny to grow up alone, or alone on the outside at least.
Okay.
From that egg hatched one very special cherub with two names, one that few will ever know, and one that few should ever say. A fascinating thing about cherub reproduction is how the parent's alignment is passed on to the young. If the male lays the egg, the alignments of the child's two halves will be the same as the parent's. If the female lays the egg, the alignments will be flipped, and the young male and female halves will be endowed with opposite alignments as the parents. As such, the male half took after his father. Perhaps the son even exceeded him in violent tendencies. It is hard to imagine there has ever been a cherub more willfully destructive or as stubbornly dedicated to conquest than the monstrosity he would grow to become.
I'm here. Blah, why?
Due to his indomitable nature, I believe victory over his sister was a foregone conclusion, barring a highly improbable glitch in causality, but it would be almost impossible for her to predominate over someone like him. And even so, he didn't have the patience to wait. Unfortunately for everyone to ever exist, he discovered a way to predominate early, yet it was not this act alone that would prove ominous, as so much as the means through which it was achieved. He was allowed to become the solo player of a game which his kind was never meant to play, and so it is with the predomination of her son that our heroine's story ends, and the story of our villain begins.
Hey, Nepiton Fefrir here. Just chillin'. Solix.
Hey, Mina, where are you going?
I'm taking a gaper break, God.
But the story isn't over yet.
Oh, they're both making their little faces. And Tavros brought treasure, okay. Girl, your stories never end. My bladder can't even deal. You're a ghost. Just keep talking while I'm gone.
No, that's okay. We can wait.
I've already heard the damn story, though.
Not all of it.
Glubberfuck, can't you just keep yapping about snake sex while I hit the little grub's room already?
I'm afraid not. Everyone must listen to the full story.
It's a chest full of fancy hats. Jeez. Oh my fucking god, you really are turning evil, aren't you? I would be proud except of how terrible and boring the actual consequences are for me, personally.
Wait, does that mean when you're a ghost you still have to pee?
That's none of your business, Blue Kid.
That's so weird. Am I the only one who thinks that's weird? No, John. It's definitely pretty weird that ghosts have to pee. You get used to life as ghosts pretty fast, though. But weren't you already pretty used to peeing when you were alive? Yeah, that's why you get used to it pretty fast, dummy. This is kind of a stupid conversation. Can we hear more about the snakes and whatnot? It was a pretty cool story. Yes, as soon as Mina returns from her visit to the Load Gaper.
Holy mackerel! Can you shitfucks just enjoy your space lizard porn while I take a fucking piss?
I think we could all stand to take a brief intermission from the story regardless, to let all those intriguing facts about cherubs sink in.
Ugh, you and your intermissions. What is it with your intermissions? They ain't even intermissions most of the time. They're just an excuse to tell another dumb story inside a longer dumb story.
Yes, Mina, you are correct, and your reservations are noted. However, would it change your mind if I were to propose not an intermission, but an interfission?
Eightfold wonk. Fine. Let's do the interfission thing you said, 'cause of fish. Beer scrubs. Begin interfission. Elevator stuck is back, okay. The sylph is gone. Tavros can play guitar? That's crazy. Did Solix just fall below deck? Bladder meter. I can't wait for Radia to hit those wind chimes, dude. Nepeto would have the shakers. What is John gonna have? He's just gonna look stupid? You can't tell me Vriska likes playing the xylophone. Come on, Aranea, hit the wind chimes already. There we go, yeah! We were all waiting for it. Eye patch guy fell the fuck down. Like captor, I guess. So, what are we doing here? I see. Okay, thanks, bye. Da, 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 da. Is there gonna be anything else? No, okay. Wow, I love the interfission. That was great. No, Gamzee. Unlocked album Cherubim.
Anyway, where was I? The heroine story ends and the villain story begins, I think. Yes, that's right. It is with the predomination of her son that our heroine story ends and the story of our villain begins.
It's like a candy egg, I see.
But as we all know, beginnings are not always so easy to pinpoint in paradox space. One could say that his story began the day he claimed immortality, or the moment his being was inexplicably confined to a juju, allowing him to access any realm in which his vessel would capriciously materialize.
Apparently I need a drink, hold on.
But, for the sake of linearity, we might as well say his story began the day he and his sister hatched.
Oh god, they're a little worm.
I'm a worm! When a cherub hatches, the two undeveloped personalities mingle together in the same body. There is not yet a clear division between the two. It will then consume the eggshell for the vital nutrients it contains. The sugary snack is irresistible to the starving wiggler. Once it finishes its first meal, the two personalities will be pulled apart for good, and the child will pupate. The two halves then begin vacillating, with their sleep cycles as I described.
I'm a dad.
As you might expect, the female child was as cheerful and friendly as could be.
Oh, the joys of parenthood.
She took after her mother in every way, at least the way her mother used to be, long before she was hardened by centuries of isolation and the obsessive pursuit of justice.
Uh-oh.
And to just as little surprise, the male child was an insufferable brat.
Da, parenthood hurts!
It is just as well that the cherub parents abandon their offspring. Raising such a child by the familial standards of any race would be a monumental challenge. Nevertheless, it would seem that there were those who tried. Details of my research suggest our villain had a number of acolytes operating in the shadows, preparing for his arrival. We will probably never know who these scurrilous conspirators were, but it is evident that at some point the cherub was locked in a room, either out of exasperation or for its own good, until it was old enough to enter this session.
I brought you plenty of T-bone steaks. You should be good forever. I found some jujubes in one of the statues of liberty.
The children were left with everything a young cherub could ever want: meat, candy, computers, a lifetime supply of special stardust, and, of course, their precious jujus. The acolytes had clearly gone to great lengths to harvest such items from all over the cosmos, so they could lavish their young master with gifts. They may have been prisoners, yes, but if you ask me, the children were very spoiled.
Is there any Fago in there? I can't believe it. There isn't.
While the female was preparing for a collaborative approach to the game, the male was plotting furiously against her. He never had any intention of working with her. As far as he was concerned, the game was his and his alone to conquer.
Gross.
One day, he put his plan into motion. He had his sister's dream self assassinated on Prospit. The next time she went to sleep, she would never wake up again. When her brother woke up, he would become the sole occupant of the body. He then freed himself from his chains and launched the session by himself.
Yeah.
But this game was never meant to be played solo. Its format is inherently cooperative. The diversity of players, the combination of their efforts and aspects, this is what awakens the true creative potential of the game. Without them, a session will wither and die. If one enters alone, it completely alters the nature of the game. It changes its purpose. For a solo player, a challenging quest becomes an insurmountable one. A reward of infinite promise becomes a boon far more sinister. The gauntlet which the player must overcome is seemingly designed to be impossible. For all intents and purposes, it is not actually a game at all. It is a death sentence for any player foolish enough to accept the challenge. But it bears repeating, this was a very special cherub. He entered what is called a dead session. This qualifies as both a null and void session, but is even less than either of those. Compared to a typical session, it is almost unrecognizable. Before the game begins, Skya is blotted out with a dark layer of clouds. Its light is extinguished for good. There is no planet waiting for the player in the medium, so instead, he brought it with him.
Land of blank and blank.
But when he arrived, there was no heroic journey for him to embark on. There was nothing. No sprite, no consorts, no underlings. The land had no name. These things all needed to be unlocked. To unlock his true quest, he was forced to undergo a series of excruciatingly tedious trials. Only then would the way to the planet's core be revealed. There he would consult with the most monstrous denizen of all, and while such trials might discourage most players from even trying, our villain's response was quite the contrary. He was only emboldened by the mind-numbing chores. He took them with gusto and performed them out of spite.
Oh, the mother of monsters.
With perseverance, he found the final door and unlocked it. Waiting for him on the other side was a terrible creature named Yaldabaoth, or Yaldabaoth. Okay, never mind. It's the same symbol, though. His denizen will allow him to make a brief audience. One just long enough for him to make the choice. Underlined.
Okay, more sound. Mwah. Where are we? Oh, that is it. It's just a big worm. Scary. Every time I think it's done, it keeps going. Is it getting brighter still? I think it is. Yeah. Okay, I think it looped now. So, I'm gonna read. Oh, look, there he is down there. Tiny.
No denizen has ever been mistaken for pleasant company, but the self-proclaimed god of all monsters is notoriously inhospitable to his players. His choices are known for their wild extremes, and this player in this session he offered his most extreme choice of all. It was between the choice of conquest and a path of sacrifice, but this was putting it lightly. In a tongue only his player could understand, he described what the path of the martyr entailed. In short, it involved nothing. The player chooses to walk away from the temptation of power, to surrender all ambition and welcome death. In exchange for this pledge comes a promise. The player's sacrifice is assured to benefit all those who will ever win. In death, or ever live. In death, the player would be later be in the position to help bring an end to the force of unfathomable evil and destruction, a force which was unleashed, for instance, by someone who once opted for the other choice. Yaldabaoth then described what it meant to choose the path of the conqueror. It was a path for a more active player, to be sure. The player's mettle as a conquering force would be tested directly and repeatedly. One by one, he would have to conquer and destroy a number of planets spawned for him in this session. Each would become more difficult than the last. After destroying them all, his true land would become unlocked. He would then return to face his denizen again and defeat him in combat. If successful, his reward would be unprecedented. He would receive the boon of unconditional immortality, where resurrection would not be linked with the just or heroic nature of death. It is unclear how this boon would be awarded, since to my knowledge it is beyond even the ability of the denizen to allow this. But through whatever mechanism the boon is bestowed, immortality is only the beginning. The player is somehow also imbued with the limitless supply of power, enough to destroy anything he wanted for as long as he wanted. And knowing the villain of our story, anything he wanted would be everything, and as long as he wanted would be forever. Yes, knowing our villain, the choice he would make is quite clear. Knowing him, in fact, proves it could hardly be considered a choice at all. Alright, what is this now? Oh, it's Skya exploding? It was at this point that the real game would begin. Skya would undergo a dramatic transformation, becoming even darker and heavier. Soon it would become a very massive solid sphere. It would begin to generate heat within due to rising density. The surface would begin to crack. Whoa! The resulting explosion is known as the first break. Oh, okay, it's pool. From the primordial blast would emerge 15 planets for the player to conquer. They would scatter and ricochet at high velocity before settling into orbit in the medium. The break is a very violent phenomenon, though. Not all planets will necessarily clear the blast before the sky and debris settle into its final state. Some get sucked down the gutter. What are they called? Gutters? I don't know. The little holes that you push the pool balls into. The vast amount of resulting matter then collapses into a black hole. Its gravitational pull is tremendous. Any object within range will be sucked in and destroyed. Those planets which settle into orbit will be safe, for the time being. But in the case of our villain's session, 3 of the planets did not make it and fell back into the hole. This was a very lucky break for him. Look at them all. And I guess the 8-ball is... Well, no, because the 8-ball's there. I was going to say, I guess the 8-ball is the, like, Earth. But no, the 8-ball is among the other balls, so I don't know. You gotta do that one last, don't forget. It meant that he would only have to conquer 12 planets instead. This bit of good fortune could very well have been the difference which allowed him to overcome a nearly impossible challenge. His task was to destroy all of these planets in order, each within a time allowance that gets shorter with every planet. To destroy a planet, first it must be conquered. He would have to overcome all forces of resistance on the planet and ultimately defeat whatever powerful underling ruled there. Then, much like he did to unlock the quest in the first place, he would have to travel to the planet's core. There he would retrieve a bomb and return to the surface. If he did not accomplish this in time, the bomb would detonate in the core and the game would be lost automatically. The bomb is not powerful enough to destroy the planet alone. In fact, its purpose is not to damage the planet at all, but to move it. Yeah, okay, into the black hole, yep. So he must bring it to the designated location on the surface. When it explodes, the planet will be knocked out of orbit and sucked into the hole. Of course, he must make sure he has moved on to the next planet before this happens. He repeats this process for each planet until they are all gone. There is one caveat, though. He must skip the 8th planet. If he sinks that one before any of the others, it will result in the destruction of the entire session. Thus it must be the final planet he conquers. Land of... everything and everything? Upon destroying the 8th planet, his true land will reveal itself. The dead planet will come to life, and there he must prepare for battle with his denizen. He may sharpen his combat skills, craft new weaponry, anything he can do to improve his chances against a very powerful endgame foe. Fortunately for him, he would not have to face the monster alone. By then he will have accumulated a party of loyal minions. With each planet he destroys, he will be awarded a new leprechaun follower. Even if a planet was destroyed in the break, he will still be awarded the planet's leprechaun upon destroying the planet preceding it. Sort of like a 2-for-1 deal.
Wait, leprechauns?
Yes, John. I'm delighted to see you have pounced on what is clearly the most interesting part of the story thus far. Leprechauns are a fascinating mystical race, although there is some dispute among scholars as to whether they are actually a breed of gnome. I can't say I blame you for being speechless. There are no doubt hundreds of questions swirling in your head at once about these wonderful creatures. Where do I even begin? You must forgive me, I find it very difficult to resist going on at length about them. I just think they are so great. For instance, I can and have given lectures for weeks at a time on their marvelous and widely varying magical abilities. More intriguing yet would be their medium to long-form harangue on the topic of their culture and customs, most of which revolve around luck. But most captivatingly of all, and the subject upon which I will now assiduously expound, would be the positively scintillating subject of leprechaun romance. Okay, we'll get to the Lucky Charms next time. I was hoping to get through all of Aranea's discussion in this episode, but it's already been more than 30 minutes, if you can believe it. Somehow. For the question of the video, which is your favorite Lucky Charms marshmallow? If you've never eaten Lucky Charms before, all the marshmallows taste the same, pretty much. So it's really just which shape do you find the most satisfying. You got all of them on the screen right now. I do kind of think the pool thing is fun. I'm just surprised it took this long for it to make any sense, you know? Like, what page are we on? We're on page, like, 6,000 and something, right? Oh, look, Aranea. 6,007, yeah. So, you know, there's, like, 2,200 pages left or something like that. And we're just getting to pool now. And it was introduced in, like, intermission 3 or something. Like, on page 2,000. Anyway. I don't know how the felt got to... I don't know how the felt got in that place for the intermission. Like, Alternia's moon. How did they get there? I guess Lord English just put them there? I don't know. You'd think they'd end up in the Earth session, because that's where Cal was at the time, but whatever. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Hopefully, Leprechaun Romance does not take another 30 minutes. By God. Find out next time. Okay, bye!